Stop. Before you sell or spend these coins, take a close look at the 1909 SVD Lincoln Wheat Cent, the 1914D, the 1931 S, and the 1877 Indian Head Cent. Each has a story that could make you see old coins very differently. The 1909 SVD Lincoln Wheat Cent is one of the most famous coins in American numismatic history, and its story begins with a new design that would become one of the longest-running coin designs in the United States. In 1909, the United States Mint introduced the Lincoln Cent to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the coin was the first regular United States circulating coin to feature a real historical American president. The obverse shows a portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right. Beneath the portrait is the date, while the familiar motto "In God We Trust" appears above him. The reverse features two wheat ears surrounding the words 1 cent and United States of America. Because of those wheat ears, collectors later gave the series its famous nickname, the Lincoln Wheat Cent. But the 1909 SVD is special for another reason. Look closely at the reverse of this coin, and you may find three small letters near the bottom. Those letters are VD, representing the initials of the coin's designer, Victor David Brenner. Brenner only placed his initials prominently on the reverse. However, the initials became controversial because some officials and members of the public considered them too noticeable. The Mint eventually removed the initials from the reverse of the Lincoln Cent. That decision created one of the most famous varieties in American coin collecting. The San Francisco Mint struck only a limited number of 1909 Lincoln Cents carrying the VD initials. Approximately 484,000 were produced before the initials were removed. That is an extremely small production figure compared with many other Lincoln Cents from the 20th century. The S on the coin identifies the San Francisco Mint, so when collectors say 1909 SVD, they are referring to a Lincoln Wheat Cent, dated 1909, struck at San Francisco. With the VD initials still present on the reverse, the coin itself is made primarily of copper, with a composition of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. It has a diameter of about 19 millimeters and weighs approximately 3.11 grams. One of the fascinating things about this coin is that rarity is not simply about age. There are many old coins that are relatively common, while some coins from the same era can be much harder to find. The 1909 SVD became highly desirable because of its limited production, its connection to the introduction of the Lincoln Cent, and the famous controversy surrounding the designer's initials. Collectors also pay very close attention to condition. A worn example can still be historically important, but coins with stronger detail, better surfaces, attractive color, and fewer distracting marks can command significantly greater interest. Certified examples can also provide collectors with greater confidence about authenticity and grade. This is especially important with the 1909 SVD, because its popularity has made it a target for alterations and counterfeits. The mint mark and the VD initials are among the features collectors carefully examine when determining whether a coin is genuine, and that brings us to value. A genuine 1909 SVD can be worth substantially more than an ordinary Lincoln Wheat Cent, but there is no single value that applies to every example. Grade, color, surface quality, authenticity, certification, and current collector demand can all make a major difference. A heavily circulated example and a sharply preserved example can have dramatically different market values. The most important lesson is that you should never judge this coin only by its age or appearance. Details matter. The 1909 SVD Lincoln Wheat Cent represents the beginning of the Lincoln Cent era, the work of an important American coin designer, and a short-lived design decision that created one of the most recognized coins in United States numismatics. More than a century later, those three tiny letters still have an enormous place in the story of American coin collecting. Look closely at the 1914D Lincoln Wheat Cent. Because this is one of the key dates that's serious. Lincoln cent collectors know immediately. Struck at the Denver Mint, the 1914 D had a mintage of just 1,193,000 coins. A remarkably small production for a circulating cent. The coin carries the classic Lincoln wheat cent design created by Victor David Brenner. On the obverse, Abraham Lincoln faces right, with liberty beside his portrait and the familiar motto above. The reverse features two wheat ears surrounding 1 cent and United States of America. This design would remain on American cents until 1958. What makes the 1914 D especially interesting is not simply its age. It is the combination of low original production and limited survival. PCGs estimates that only around 120,000 examples survive across all grades, with far fewer remaining in higher condition. The D beneath the date is extremely important. It identifies Denver as the mint where this particular cent was produced. Without that D, you are looking at a different 1914 Lincoln cent, with a very different place in the series. The 1914 D was struck from the standard Lincoln cent composition of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. It measures about 19 millimeters across and weighs approximately 3.11 grams. There is also an important lesson about condition. Many 1914 D cents entered circulation, so finding one with heavy wear is not unusual. But well-preserved examples are considerably more difficult to find. PCGs identifies the 1914 D as one of the traditional big three key dates of the Lincoln cent series, alongside the 1909 VD and the 1931 S. And this is where grading becomes critical. Collectors examine the amount of remaining detail, the condition of the surfaces, the color of the copper, and any marks or damage. Brown, red, brown, and red designations can also affect how collectors view an uncirculated example. The difference between an ordinary circulated coin and an exceptional mint state specimen can be enormous. The finest known examples are especially sought after. 1 PCG's documented 1914 D graded Miss 66 red-brown has brought tens of thousands of dollars at auction. That does not mean every 1914 D is worth anything close to that. Auction results for exceptional certified coins should never be confused with the value of an average circulated example. There is another reason collectors approach this date carefully. Because the 1914 D is so desirable, genuine examples have been subjected to alteration and counterfeiting. Specialists examine the date, mint mark, surfaces, and known diagnostic characteristics when authenticating valuable specimens. So if you ever encounter a 1914 D Lincoln wheat cent, do not judge it simply by how old it looks. The exact date, the Denver mint mark, the condition, authenticity, and overall eye appeal all matter. The 1914 D Lincoln wheat cent is a fascinating reminder that rarity is not always about having only a handful of coins in existence. Sometimes it is about how many were originally made, how many survived, and how many collectors still want them today. That combination is what transformed this small copper cent from ordinary pocket change into one of the most important key dates in the entire Lincoln cent series. In 1931, the United States was deep in the Great Depression, and demand for new coins had fallen dramatically. That is part of the story behind the 1931's Lincoln wheat cent, a small copper coin with one of the lowest mintages in the entire Lincoln cent series. Struck at the San Francisco Mint, only 866,000 1931 cents were produced. That makes it the second lowest mintage for a regular issue Lincoln cent, surpassed only by the 1922 plain cent. When considering regular circulating issues and its unusual production circumstances, the coin features Victor David Brenner's familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse. Lincoln faces right, with liberty beside him and the date below. The reverse displays two wheat ears surrounding 1 cent and United States of America. The small s below the date is the detail that identifies this coin as a San Francisco issue. Without that s, you're looking at a completely different 1931 Lincoln cent, What makes this coin particularly fascinating is what happened after it was struck. Because there was so little demand for cents during the Depression, many of the 1931's cents were stored rather than immediately released into circulation. When economic activity increased several years later, these coins began reaching banks and the public. That history helps explain why the 1931's became such an important date for collectors. The coin measures 19 millimeters across and weighs 3.11 grams. Like other Lincoln wheat cents of this period, it is composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. But low mintage does not automatically mean every example is extremely valuable. The condition is one of the most important factors. A circulated 1931's can show considerable wear, while a sharply preserved example with strong original color can attract much greater collector interest. Professional grading also becomes especially important for high-grade examples, because small differences in preservation can have a major effect on market value. Collectors commonly encounter three color categories for this coin: brown, red, and red. These descriptions reflect the coin's copper color and can be particularly important for uncirculated pieces. The survival numbers are also interesting. PCG's estimates roughly 8,000 examples survive in all grades, with around 2,750 estimated at grade 65 or better. These are estimates rather than an exact census of every surviving coin, and the high end of the market shows just how important condition can become. A 1931's graded MS-67 red was recorded at a heritage auction sale in August 2025 for $43,200. That is an exceptional certified example, and should not be treated as the expected value of an ordinary 1931's for a collector examining one today. The most important things to confirm are the date, the S mint mark, authenticity, overall preservation, and whether the coin has been cleaned or damaged. A worn example may still be an important piece of American history, while a high-quality example can be a major prize for a Lincoln cent collection. The 1931's Lincoln wheat cent is fascinating because its story is connected directly to one of the most difficult economic periods in American history. Falling demand led to dramatically reduced coin production, and that unusual circumstance created a coin that collectors would continue searching for generations later. So the next time you see a 1931's Lincoln wheat cent, remember that you are not simply looking at an old penny. You are holding a small piece of the Great Depression and one of the key dates of the classic Lincoln cent series. The 1877 Indian head cent is one of the most important dates in the entire Indian head cent series. Only 852,500 were officially reported, making it the second lowest mintage of the series. But its real rarity goes even deeper because very few were saved by collectors when they were new, but produced at the Philadelphia Mint. This copper bronze cent features Liberty wearing a Native American-inspired headdress on the obverse, while the reverse displays 1 cent surrounded by a wreath. There is no mint mark because Philadelphia did not use one on this issue. What makes the 1877 especially fascinating is that economic conditions reduced demand for cents, while large numbers of older cents were returned to the mint and reused. That unusual history helps explain why so few 1877 cents survived in collectible condition. Today, collectors consider the 1877 Indian head cent the key date of the series. Its value depends heavily on condition, color, surfaces, and authenticity. Even lower-grade examples can command substantial premiums, while exceptional red uncirculated specimens can reach extraordinary levels. Current PCG's guide figures show just how dramatically values increase with grade and color. Because this date is so desirable, authentication is particularly important. Counterfeits of the 1877 Indian head cent are well documented, so a valuable example should be examined carefully by a qualified professional. More than a century later, the 1877 Indian head cent remains a remarkable piece of American history. and one of the dates that can instantly change the importance of an Indian head cent collection.